Hello, 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 hello. My name is Ryan Erickson. You watching this here right now are here on BetaCodex Live, the Center for Freedom at Work, decentralized, democratized, and federalized organizations and work processes in the not the future world of work, the world of work that is now. So I am here today to celebrate, to introduce in a certain way a concept that is revolutionary, I think, in terms of software development and just a way of thinking about doing work in the digital domain here in 2025 and certainly into the future. It's called time-oriented software development. It was let's say who came up with that? Who brought that into being? Well, let me show you who that is. That would be Mr. Niels Pflaeging in the upper left of your screen. And with us today, Niels and I have been together, if you've seen this for a while, in the upper right of your screen is a gentleman named Sebastian Kubsch. Am I pronouncing that correctly? Yes, Kubsch?
It's Kubsch. Yeah,
Cool.
it's all right. It's all right.
Close enough. Well, so welcome, Sebastian, to the playground that Niels and I have come to be in for a while. And I am happy to hear about A, time-oriented software development in depth, as we've talked about it, and certainly your experience with it kind of before in the vast wasteland of Scrum and whatever agile-related methods or processes you've been involved with, and how time-oriented software development showed up in your world. And so that's where we want to go. Niels, would you like to say something to kick us off about what TOSD is and how it came about? Since this is the first time we're talking about it in on Beta.
Yes. Maybe Sebastian, you will soon have to explain a little bit about your part of
Sure.
this. But maybe for those who are listening, watching, viewing, this TOSD, time-oriented software development, we launched it. Sebastian and I launched it 17 days ago.
Yes.
2 weeks or so ago, roughly. And so it's really new. People have had the opportunity to read about it because there is a BetaCodex network research paper, our 26th research paper since 2008. So Sebastian and I, a couple of months ago, we decided to publish this together, to write a paper together that outlines both the conceptual side and the case of Pflaeging GmbH, which is Sebastian's company, the company he works for and acts as a CTO. And I've been working with Pflaeging for a year and a half, I think, Sebastian? Probably.
Yeah. I think we two met in summer of 24, if I remember correctly, in the first BetaCodex workshop. Good times.
Yes. There is a fabulous photo of that that I took of you, Sebastian, during that workshop.
That photo, I have to say that, is not very charming to read through.
Do you think you do not look good on it?
I've lost weight since then.
Let's
keep it at that.
Yes. But that, the point I wasn't making wasn't, oh, he was so fat back then. It was, you had this, to my surprise, you had this T-shirt we were wearing.
The beta,
with beta written on it, and I was so surprised. We had never met before, and I wondered, okay, is this a coincidence or what? Whatever, no, you had it done for that.
The story is actually great. At the time, I was on vacation with my family, and I was in Denmark actually. And while I was there, I was reading in preparation books like Komplexitoden and others, and I was. I don't know, it connected on a level with me that I said, you have to get into your car, drive the 700 kilometers back to Bochum and meet Niels. And in preparation for that, I actually printed that T-shirt and thought it would just be a cool gag.
Yeah, it was very funny, very hilarious. I think the workshop started with Silke, and I dropped in the second day or something. So that was very nice surprise. Since then, we have been just for contextualization of this session. We met the first time in summer of 24. Now, and in between, the company Pratke adopted cell structure design, a really decentralized structure with cells in the periphery running the business much better than before. I think we can say today.
It's definitely.
It's a very different company already. But until this year, we hadn't really tackled how Pratke, which is a software company, it produces software. Sebastian, you can correct me. It produces, what does it produce? Time scheduling software for hospitals and...
yeah, especially in the healthcare market, fire departments, emergency rescue services, and so on. Everywhere where you have to schedule your employees in shifts is a market we try to get to.
Where scheduling of employee work and also the financial, the pay systems are depending on.
Yeah, right. Yeah, we calculate for example, what money people get for overtime they work and so on.
Yes. And shifts, depending on night shifts and so on, all this kind of stuff. So very, very complicated stuff that you solve for larger institutions like hospitals and so on. So the structure changed, but the way the software, the Pratke software had been developed, we didn't tackle this until this summer, right? And this summer we thought, now is the time to do that. The developers have to come on board. So this is, from my point of view, I had this problem as a consultant to Pratke. Okay, what should they do different and how? There must be something good, but
yeah, you have a point there. You have a point there. I think, as you described, we radically transformed the company itself and the way it works, but we never really took a good look at the way we produce software in this ever-changing system. And not to say that the transformation was a problem for the way we produce software. It was quite slow and tedious and difficult in the times before also. But it was, I think, really important that after things had settled in with the beta transformation and so on, that we took a really good and hard look at the way we, as a software company, produce software. Yeah, and that was exactly the moment we too took a step back and said, the way things are now are not the way things should be, and there needs to be something else. And here we are.
Yes, and the key idea, I must say, from my point of view, the first insight I had was, it also, for me, the thing coincided with work on the Taiichi Ohno book. It's here in my background. It's not really visible, but it's in the market now. I put together this book of quotes. Do you have it, Ryan? Did you?
I'm looking for it. Is that
okay? So I was working over the last couple of months. I was working together with another German, Stefan Schmeing. I was working on this little book that Ryan is showing right now. What should Ohno-san do? A book with quotes about Taiichi Ohno, and that got me back into thinking that, okay, the idea of, just in time and Kanban and actual flow, of course, in software development, something like called Kanban exists, but it's not really even remotely related to Kanban if you look at it, interestingly. So I was very, very much, in Taiichi Ohno's head, so to speak, designing the book and putting together the quotes. And one thing that struck me is something that Taiichi Ohno says, a quote in the book as well. Of course, a system like the Toyota production system or Kanban or just in time or Kaizen, it doesn't solve your problems. It only forces the problems to bubble up.
It makes them visible.
To make the problems visible, unoverlookable. Does that even exist as a word? Probably not. But
unavoidable. Yeah,
unavoidable. Yeah, unavoidable. So the idea of time orientation was very, very strongly in my mind. And I also remembered Ernst Weichselbaum's work, which is prominently featured in our research paper as well that we published 2 weeks ago. And then I had, at some point, I had this idea, okay, let's bring the OK point, the Ernst Weichselbaum's OK point concept into software development. Where could it be placed? And then I thought about, okay, there must be a point in software development that's relevant, a distinction that we overlooked. And that was, for me, that was the starting point of TOSD. Sebastian, maybe you start sharing how it started for you.
Yeah, my journey was wildly different than yours, of course, but I myself became CTO of the company only in timelines around March, April.
Yes,
things
around
became
March,
rolling.
yes.
And up to
And
there,
deservedly so, I must say.
Sorry?
Deservedly so. You deserve.
Thanks. No, but it's the first weeks. Obviously, I was orienting myself and taking a good look at the organization and the things that were happening. I'm at the company since 20 years, so most of the stuff clearly, I knew how things were working out at Pflaeging. But I had to take a step back and take a good hard look without the developer brain I had in me up to that point.
Yeah.
And I really saw that Scrum is. I don't want to make this talk about Scrum, to be clear. But Scrum, it wasn't doing the things for us Scrum promised and tried to promise. And what I saw was development was slow. Developers were bound in strange rituals where they were wasting time and so on. And I was looking at chances at alternatives to get things rolling again. We ourselves, our software we have is quite old. Development started around 30 years ago. So there, over the years, we've accumulated quite a large portion of legacy code. And that especially are it's difficult, to say the least, to make this migration from such a huge old code base into modern technologies like we're targeting Vue, for example, at the moment. This transition was way too slow, to make a point.
Yeah.
And it was clear that if we don't change that, if we don't get way faster, if we don't get much more rigid in the processes and things we do, honestly, we would fail over time. And that was a fear that was driving me at the time. And I think, was it July, August? You approached me, I think, and said, hey, you made similar observations on some points. And then we decided, hey, there are better alternatives. Let's work on that and try to find something that suits the needs of this organization better. And I strongly believe that the ideas we developed in that time are not Pflaeging specific, obviously. Why else would we have published the paper and so on? But they tackle fundamental problems in the software development world we see today in many organizations and teams. And I think we can contribute to that. We can. I don't want to be too theatrical, but we can make the world a better place, Niels.
Yes. Which is why, even though we were still you were still bringing the system to Pflaeging and kind of implementing it, I think it was right after the go live of time-oriented software development at Pflaeging that we also said, okay, we really have to think now about
Yeah,
articulate better.
Yeah, that's interesting. It wasn't at the beginning. It wasn't clear that what TOSD has become of now would be. I think, or I have the feeling that was never the target. At first, we wanted to build something that worked well for us, and then soon a point came where we said, "Wait a minute, that can be way bigger than we have thought," and I'm happy that things turned out that way.
I would like to go back just a little bit. There was one thing you said in your riff there was about that what you're doing with time-oriented software development solves some basic problems that you had seen throughout your career, in whether that was Scrum, whether that was now had you also had experience in a traditional waterfall stage gate kind of software development environment, Sebastian?
Yeah. Over the years, we took the traditional route, I would almost say. In the early beginnings, for me, that was about 2005 or so.
Okay.
We were working very waterfally, very classic, and I can't pinpoint it chronologically, but I know that I was with a good colleague and friend of mine. I was in Berlin, and we took a workshop in Scrum.
Okay.
And to be honest, it was great. I thought, well, here it is. Why bother with anything else? Scrum will solve all our problems, and we brought that back to the company. And began implementing. And
what
problems
did you think it would solve? What problems did you think Scrum would solve for you at that point in time?
I think it was user orientation. We had a problem. I don't know how to phrase it, but we had a history of developing features over months and push them to the market, and user feedback was, no.
Yeah,
that's not great. This says a lot about our user research journey also, but I always had the idea, hey, if only you write user stories as X, I want to Y because of Z. You get a better grasp targeting your audience, developing features that are better tailored to the users and so on. I found it very promising, the idea that developers themselves would be more empowered and have more control over the things that happen. And interestingly, especially that is one of the aspects I think Scrum never delivered on. In the opposite.
Very good point. Very good point.
If you ask me now, years after we implemented Scrum, I view that very differently, and I would say developers take the passenger seat. If in Scrum, they're not in the driver's seat. Definitely not.
They have no. I think it's very obvious from Scrum practice that software developers play second fiddle to the PO, to the Scrum masters.
They don't have enough agency in the end.
They are not even considered serious human beings, I think, by rituals. I think the rituals like dailies and retrospectives indicate that kind of lack of confidence in developers, no?
Well, the structure.
Historic. I also, by the way, I was a big fan of Scrum, I must admit. For several years. I thought it was very beta. Now I see things differently, and this is not convenient, or I don't try to be opportunistic or polemic about it, but I think what you just described, that there were promises made in Scrum that were never in any way delivered by the process or the structure.
No, and they couldn't, because of the nature of Scrum. That's somehow the point for me. Interesting is that so many people didn't see that up front, me myself included.
Nobody noticed.
I was absolutely sure Scrum would solve all these problems.
Ryan, you have a history as well with Scrum, right? Maybe even more than
I do, and I think part of it is, as I learned, that I came into Agile software development from large projects and stage-gated plan, analyze, design, build, test, build. And so Scrum felt like, oh, there's this way. We don't have to wait, 5 months until something gets out into the world, which is great. We can actually have every 2 weeks we have something, and we're actually inviting our customers, users, whomever, into the room every 2 weeks to take a look at what we've built in the last 2 weeks, which is, it's better than waiting months and months, but there's still this, you're implanting into an organization that has project managers, business analysts, developers, architects, and all these different roles that are named that people have such a deep identity into, right?
Sales.
Which survive in Scrum organizations, no?
Well, they survive in the organizations outside of the Scrum teams. And then there are this also this pigs and chickens thing. So you've got I don't even want to go into that. Some people who are committed and people who are just concerned, right?
Yeah.
So you got the software developers, and it was, and well, with the business, when you bring Scrum in, business analysts like, oh my gosh, I don't have a job anymore. I don't know.
Yes.
And then the business analysts become product owners, but what do I? But I don't. I report to this person, but I'm supposed to have ownership over that. And the Scrum Master is this. Well, I don't know. I'm a project manager. I mean, I gotta get status from folks, and it's like, okay, right. Well, give me your status. Well, how very easily that a project manager gets put into a Scrum team as a Scrum Master, and their daily Scrum becomes status, which was not the intent, which was not the theory and design of what Scrum. But when you install that idea and that theory into an organization, the organization, Scrum doesn't change the organization. The organization changes Scrum.
Yeah.
And I think this, for me, was a big insight coming into the beta world, is that, well, when you have a decentralized organization where people are already crossing boundaries and having better interactions and relationships, then those roles tend to they become more bonds rather than boundaries.
By the way, may I add something? A recent experience. I was in Serbia last week to speak at Agile Scrum gathering, regional Scrum gathering in Belgrade. And one of the participants came up to me after the talk, after the keynote, and she said, there are several product managers like myself here in the audience, and some of us were struggling a bit with your message. She said, it's all good, but do we not become superfluous in time-oriented software development, we product managers? Why are you shaking your head? I think they do. As product managers, I think they do. Not as people, not as professionals, but as the role of product manager is an antithesis of time-oriented software. All these roles we talked about, analyst, coach, etc. All this is antimatter to the matter of time orientation in a way, because these are all roles of steering that are put on top of software development. No, maybe I'm wrong.
No. I think, well, does an organization that's delivering software still need the discipline of product management? Absolutely, it does.
I don't think so.
Well, but depending how you define, we can be semantic about that. But that task of product management, what goes into the project, how does it go there? That's a conversation that happens amongst many people in many different ways.
It's a very important discussion in most scales and Scrum organization.
We talk about this shared accountability, responsibility, shared agency, conversation, talking to each other. Sounds like a concept maybe from the paper.
TTEO. Talk to each
Yes,
other.
TTEO. So, yeah. So, what I'm
Sebastian,
hearing,
you should say something.
Yeah.
Because Ryan and I, this is our 76th episode. We are so used to talking, throwing conversation away, as they say in Brazil.
Everything's fun. No, I really connected with one thing Ryan said. That companies change Scrum and not Scrum changes companies. It's funny because whenever in the last 5 years I spoke to anyone about what are you doing? Yeah, we're doing Scrum, but not by the book. We're doing this and this and this differently and so on. So I never in my life met anyone who said, yeah, we're doing Scrum by the book. That's the first point. The second, I think, but that it's a slippery slope because it could imply that only if you did Scrum right, then things would work out. And I don't think that's true. I think
if it's not working, you're not doing it right. So,
yeah, right. But I don't think you can do Scrum right as of now. I was thinking very differently, very long years, and always thought that we were making mistakes. We were not good enough to live the process, to do things right, to follow the guidelines. Our retrospectives were bad. Our reviews were bad. We were discussing about this nonsense that had no effect on the production side at any point.
Yes.
And I think that is a great fallacy that lies in Scrum and similar approaches itself. That the promise, if only you did it right, if only you were consequent enough, things would work out. No, they don't.
Yeah. The scripture is as flawed as the practice. I think that's the theory behind it. Is just this is something that I learned in the last couple of months when I released an article about this. Time boxing is good, sprints are bad. Ryan, thank you for reviewing the article and helping me getting it to publication ready. That's something that I noticed more and more, that sprints were never even remotely time oriented. They are still capacity oriented.
Okay.
Capacity oriented thinking, which is why it could never work. Sprints are too clumsy. Clumsy, that's a good word to describe it, I think. Too cumbersome. You only learn every 14 days or so. If your sprint is 14 days, every 14 days you have some insight about what happened. The rest is invisible, even on the damn board that you might have, because things are not moving there. And in time orientation, in TOSD, it's very different because the board moves every day. Items move on the board every day.
Yeah, and if things happen every day, obviously problems arise, technical stuff rises to the top where you say, oops, we have to deal with that. Yeah. What do you do in Scrum? Often you say, the sprint is running, the sprint is holy. Let's put this in the backlog, and somehow, magically, we will address this stuff. Or let's talk in 2 weeks about that in a retrospective. And so there's no immediacy.
There's no now.
And as a consequence of that, I think there arises a pattern of missing sense of urgency in some things. Obviously, you can't handle everything ad hoc that happens. In the perfect world, that we would be like that. But in TOSD, you have no backlog where you can hide your problems in. You can't say, in 3 weeks there's this meeting and then we'll have the talk and everything will be fine. You have to think about what you have to do now. Is it important? Is it immediately important? Then you have to address it now. And there's no other chance. And I think that's the only reasonable thing to do. If you see something where you say, hey, we've got a problem. Let's talk about it and let's take action now.
Maybe for those who haven't taken a look at the concept yet, which may be because the concept is only 17 days old or published 17 days ago. So just to explain what or contextualize what you, Sebastian, just said, in time-oriented software development in TOSD, every single item, there's single piece flow, just like at Toyota, on the Toyota production line, there's single piece flow, no batching, no batches, no series of items, but every item individual flows through the development process, which is from a list of items, it's called the list, through conceptualization, through a point that's called the OK point, where conceptualization and realization meet and shake hands, and through realization. And realization always only takes 1, 2, or 3 days. And every item might every single item might take 1 or 2 or 3 days to realize, never more, never ever more. So every item that flows through this process from the list, through the conceptualization stage, through the OK point, through realization, it takes just a couple of days to flow through. You know, if you are very good at time-oriented software development, every single item will take no more than a maximum of 4 or 5 days to flow through the whole process, right?
Yeah.
With nothing stuck at the OK point, but it flows from conceptualization directly, which is a challenge to make that happen. And of course, it's a challenge for Pflaeging as well to make that happen. But it always stays up to date. It's very timely, right? It's very immediacy.
Yeah,
is a big.
Yeah, that's exactly the point I was trying to make. And what you say is fundamentally true. It is a challenge. It is a challenge to balance realization versus conceptualization, to keep a steady flow of items. There are obvious dangers lurking there. If you produce not enough concepts, then you risk that your developers run out of things to do. On the other hand, I think at least we are equally dangerous is if you produce too few, too much concepts, and they start piling up, and you get into some kind of backlog logic again, where you have tens and hundreds and maybe thousands of items where no one knows when they will ever be processed, and by the time they get to the realization, they are already old and stale, and forget it. We have to talk about all this stuff again. So to balance these things out, you have to take a very sharp look at the things that are happening. You have to learn a lot. I'm still learning every day in this process, but it's worth it.
Also, another challenge of keeping flow or producing flow and staying in flow is that the list needs to be high quality and needs to be reviewed, refined, like combing your hair. The list of items needs to be combed so that conceptualizers do not find it hard to take items from the list and conceptualize them within an hour. It might take 20 minutes to conceptualize an item, or an hour, or half a day, or a day. It might even take 3 days, I think. In some cases, not currently with the current list at Pflaeging, I think, but conceptualization should be as speedy as realization, really.
Yeah,
but we haven't put a limit to the time yet, I think.
Yeah,
conceptualization. But it's important that the list is high quality, otherwise the river starts flowing back, and that cannot.
And sorry, it's super important that the list has a goal, and an achievable goal, I must say. So,
well, not a measure, not an indicator, but a project content.
Right. You don't want to have a list where you say everything we will ever gonna do, we'll throw in that list, and the goal is clear. At some point in time, this list has to be empty, and all the stuff that is in this has to be done. And then you start the next list.
Every list must be closed at some point. Otherwise, it's not a list. It's garbage dump.
Well, but again, this gets back to, Scrum has a sprint goal. We got sprint goals. We got product goals. But, we have a goal every 2 weeks. How is that different?
Yeah, what's a sprint goal? I never understood that. And I got this question in Serbia as well at the conference. So what about the sprint goal? And I wonder what can be the sprint? What can the sprint goal be? That you conclude the items that are in the sprint, right?
Well, you define it. You define a scope for the sprint. That you define a scope for the sprint, and then that.
In terms of words or an indicator, how does that work? I never
Well,
understood this. I think
well,
it's
again, in Scrum, Scrum in 10 seconds, right? There's a product backlog for everything you would ever want to do with a particular product. The product goal, and in particular time, you want to do all these things in 2-3 months, and then along the way there are these milestones. Every 2 weeks, there is a sprint goal.
milestones, capacity orientation lurking. Yes.
Okay, so I definitely want to, because there's some basic concepts I think we need to get out on the table, and we need to do this again. I think that's important. But so you have product backlog, product goal, sprint backlog, and sprint goal. A sprint backlog is just a chunk of that product backlog put into a 2-week batch.
So the goal is the content of the sprint.
Well, there can be an abstraction to it. That there's, well, yeah, again. It's we need to
see. This is I think why I'm playing dumb here at this point. I think the debates around sprint goals are a symptom of pointlessness, of useless roles and useless meeting formats.
But we didn't meet the goal.
Yeah, exactly. It's a conversation to be had, and it can be escalated up and down the scale ladder or whatever. It's to me, it's one of the.
We did.
Yeah,
I remember vividly conversations we had in sprint plannings. What is the goal of this sprint? And you look at the list of user stories you have in the sprint. It's a wild mix-up of stuff, and more often than not, to be honest, the sprint goal was get
shit
done. So
finish these 12 stories in this sprint, and because they're estimated at this, whatever.
Yeah.
I guess I really want to go back to the very, very fundamental piece of this, the idea of what is the distinction between capacity orientation and time orientation, because we're making a bold claim that hey, everybody, you're all developing software completely wrong. You're using capacity orientation, and really, what would get you where you want to go, better quality, faster, all this kind of stuff, is time orientation. Well, capacity orientation. What are you talking about? What makes Waterfall and Scrum capacity oriented?
Don't go chasing Waterfall.
That's the next episode. So I guess, Niels, I'll go to you with this. And
maybe I had a little anecdote that got me rethinking software development. A very peculiar thing. It has nothing to do with Pflaeging, really. This happened maybe two years ago or so. I mean, I have this software company as well, Comenius, and we had the original Comenius software. We had it developed by a guy in Croatia, or two guys in Croatia. So our software development was Croatian, and at some point we were forced to take over the software development and take it to make it better and faster and so on. And a German guy, Andreas, became our CTO. Sebastian, you met him the other day. Wonderful guy. He also was our very first client with OpenSpace beta transformation. Very interesting guy. So he took over the role of CTO at Comenius, developing the software further. And sometimes Silke and I, as we are let's say the people behind the concept of this kind of learning that's behind Comenius, which is small group learning sessions in conversation. And sometimes Silke would have a feature idea, and she would talk it through maybe with me or just with Andreas or with the two of us. And sometimes Andreas would say, "Oh yeah, this sounds interesting. I like that idea." And boom, the next day the feature was ready. It was done. It was or sometimes the next day he would say, "The feature is there. Can you take a look at it, test it?" And then the next day it would be ready. So it always took, like, if he got, to work on the feature that he liked and understood, it would take 1 or 2 days or maybe 3 to have it done in the software live so that we could use it and deploy it to clients. And of course, that got me thinking, if that guy can be the architect and the realizer, we call it as we call it today, the person conceiving the item and making it happen. If that is conceptually possible, if no team is needed to develop software, then how is this with other companies, other software features, other softwares? Are they also developed by just 1 or 2 people? And this it nagged me. The notion that's so popular in the Agile movement that software is delivered by software teams, I saw the proof that it wasn't like that. That software isn't developed by teams. It's developed by a single person or 2 people. And I checked this at Pratke as well. I'm not sure if you remember, Sebastian, but I sometimes ask, who is doing this and how is this being done? And the story is never, we have a team that has been banging their heads together for weeks and they have spit this. No, it's always one guy, Golden Dirk or somebody. There's a guy called Dirk. Golden Dirk. Hello, Dirk. There is this guy, Golden Dirk, and Golden Dirk usually works alone. Sometimes he works in pairs, and pair programming is a thing, of course. But, it's never a team developing the software. That's something that I started learning also from other clients we have been working with over the years, software clients. So this is another insight that I personally had, that the software development team is a total myth. It's another agglomeration. Like sprints, it's another batch mechanism, another thing that makes software development almost near impossible or very, very.
When you're like handoffs between people and 3 or 4 or 5 people.
Yeah, and the suggestion that teams should meet in retrospectives and dailies, that you always need the team and that the team has a scrum master, the team has an agile coach. All this is overblown, heavy, bureaucratic, stifling. Of course, it's a form of terrifying micromanagement. Of course, the Golden Dirks of this world, they reject the bullshit, and they sit there and do their stuff anyway. Others may not do anything more because it becomes just a ridiculous spectacle.
It's lip service. You go to the meeting and say, "What I did this yesterday. I'm doing this today, and this is nothing in my way. I did this, doing that, nothing in my way, and I'm out."
As our friend Daniel Mazik from the United States says, people start talking the words, but they are empty. They have no meaning anymore.
It's lip service.
We talk the agile vocabulary, the lingo, but there's nothing behind it. Yes, and this fraud, I think it has become commonplace in the agile movement, the kind of theater.
Well,
nobody intended this. It's born. Sebastian put this very well, I think. Scrum could never have produced flow. It just doesn't offer the means. It just doesn't offer the techniques or the roles. Nothing. And we became used to agile being like that, this kind of sophisticated theater. And then you put scaling on top and it becomes even more theatrical and so on. Yeah? Sebastian, you look interested.
I'm
Can't believe
the thought I was having is that for software developers may sound at first frankly frightening, maybe even, because you could think that this would mean laissez-faire. Everyone was doing whatever they wanted, but that's not the case.
You mean in agile or in time oriented?
No. In TOSD, because you said software isn't produced in teams. It's individual effort and skill that makes things happen. And I'm absolutely with you on that point. Never.
You are a real software developer. You write code as well.
Never in the history of software development has a team produced. I'm exaggerating, obviously, but has produced something really great. I'm personally sure of that. It's more often individual excellence and the will to make a difference and do stuff you are yourself proud of and so on. But on the other hand, that does not mean that you have a set of 10, 20, 30 individualists that don't have nothing to do with each other. Of course, we talk to each other. Of course, we talk about how specific things should work out in the long run, so that everybody is in the same picture and we have common goals there. So I just wanted to make the point that it could sound a little bit loosey, and in fact it isn't, as long as you have functioning dynamics in your teams.
One thing I do want to put out here is that there are tribes of folk who do mob programming, and who are very experienced in that way and have developed a practice of doing it. Many folks looking, I mean, this is like one screen, 5 people having conversations about code in that way. I have never done it. I'm not a coder either, so I mean, I would be in the room, but I would, whatever. So that's a practice, I think, but that's a different kind of team than I think what you're talking about. So I don't know. I'm just challenging a little bit that a team has never written a piece of software.
Yes.
Well, we have giant pieces of software, our Salesforces, our Oracle, HR, all these giant pieces of software that were written by teams of teams of teams of teams. So what do you mean that only 1 or 2 people? How could 1 or 2 people write this behemoth of software? So that's a cognitive difference. And then now, well, maybe we have 5 people working on it. So I think the idea of what is a team, what do you mean by that, that's important to understand. It's a distinction I'd like to make.
Sebastian, you want to answer that?
Still thinking.
Well, let me try first. A team is a container. A team is a container of people, and for us in the BetaCodex movement, for the 3 of us, I dare say, a team is something that is not easily sized, scaled to endless numbers. So a team starts with 4 people, let's say, and it ends at 7 or 8. Yes. So a team is a relatively small group of people working with each other, for each other, as we like to say in beta.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing with software is, yes, over time, if you have a Oracle, SAP, Salesforce system, of course, a lot of people have contributed to it. But every single item or feature has been produced by just 1 or 2 people, or maybe 3 or 4, because there were maybe 2 people in conceptualization, 2 in realization. That's a typical case of how software is developed. Over time, a software may become a behemoth, a monster, a soul-sucking big
Kraken.
Yeah, Kraken, exactly. But still, I mean, how a software comes into being is through the development of individual features or items, and any of these items is developed by. Now, the notion of a software team produces a problem different than a mob. Mob programming that's a friend of TOSD, by the way. It's very important. It's in the paper as well, as one of the many friends of TOSD. Yeah. And I would say at Praket that it exists as well, right? With a sensei, you have sensei doing mob programming sessions with several developers at the time, but then these developers usually will work on several different items, and they will have the session together, which is a mob programming structure. But to say that the same software development team keeps working together over time on pieces of software, and they always have to do things together, that's a stifling idea. It's an anti-learning, anti-agile, anti-everything.
Militaristic almost.
Exactly. Because in the military, in a squad, of course, you learn to fight. You have gone into several battles. You have survived. The others are in the grave already. That's what we get from military movies, right? A squad is a tight-knit thing, and of course, the better you know each other, the more you can rely upon each other. That's at least what I see on TV. Yeah, how this works. In software development, it's a little bit different. I think you might have 20 developers like at Praket. 20 or more, or hundreds or thousands of developers. You cannot forever group them in a logical way. They should, for every item, that's the TOSD logic, for every item, people should think, am I the right conceptualizer for that item? Should I do it alone or with another person? or the person owning the list, in this case, Sebastian.
Sebastian, I definitely want to hear how this looks in practice, how you're reflecting on what Niels is saying so far, because this is fascinating.
Yeah, something I see often that goes into the direction Niels is targeting. If you throw a group of people onto the same problem, naturally one thing happens. They start to divide the problem into subcategories. So one developer says, okay, dudes, I'm going to do the front end. Okay, dudes, I'm going to do the backend part. Hey, I'm going to go to the database and I don't know, create new entities, whatever. Someone else may start writing the documentation. The problem with that is that these structures tend to solidify. So it perpetuates specialization in the end, because when you throw the same set of people the next time onto another problem, they say, hey, last time I did the front end, you know what, guys, I'm doing the front end, you're doing the back end, you're doing the database, and sorry, dude, but you're stuck writing documentation for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Choose wisely what your first task in team is. Of course, specialization is a thing in some regards, but when you think TOSD, I rather like to think not monospecialism, but people that can make an effort on all relevant parts of the production process. We ourselves, for example, we have people that are authorized as K and as R.
As conceptualizer and realizer.
Mm-hmm. These guys another concept we need to articulate. Yes,
but it's very simple. We already talked about the OK point distinguishing between conceptualization and realization, and this is C's and R's. If you call conceptualizer C's and realizers R's, and at Pratke they call the conceptualizers K's, not C's, because in German conceptualizer is Konzipierer with a K, So yeah, right. And some people are authorized only as conceptualizers. Some people conceptualize and realize, and some people only realize. That's very important to time-oriented software development, right? And that's it. That's the specialization that's there.
Yeah, and specialization in the end is another antithesis to adaptability, and yeah, I don't know.
But it's very important. This is a Weichselbaum concept as well that you guys adopted at Pratke, the distinction between mono-specialists and multi-specialists. And a company can only afford so many mono-specialists who can only do one thing. I'm just the front-end guy. I think Pratke had a UX guy until recently who only did UX.
Yeah.
He's not there anymore, and not because he was bad, but you cannot have mono specialists, because how will you use them? If any item, in reality of software development, if any item is developed by 4 people max, 2 conceptualizers, 2 realizers, and you have one person who insists on only doing UX or only doing testing or only doing architecture or whatever only thing there might be, then you will never get fast. You cannot produce flow because those people will be useless most of the time, waiting for work for them to get done. It's a ridiculous game that's happening everywhere in software development, I'm convinced. Most people are waiting for time. No?
And funny enough, that's exactly the point, I think, where TOSD feeds back into beta. That's why these concepts play so nicely along, because monospecialism is unthinkable in cell structure, for example.
By the way, that's a great. That's something we should talk about briefly, very briefly. Something very noticeable happened at Pflaeging when Pflaeging went live with its decentralized cell structure. Most of the software developers became part of the periphery teams, the business teams, and they learned an awful lot of things, not development related, right? So there are people, software developers, servicing people, doing tickets for people, for clients, talking to clients, servicing them, making proposals, writing invoices, all this the normal stuff. Software developers at Pflaeging have learned an awful lot of things about.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so they have become multi-specialists outside software development, but in TOSD, it's really important that they become multi-specialists in software, or that they play this, that they feel like full stack developers. We had a long discussion about full stack developers, Sebastian and I, long time ago, I think.
Yeah.
I was actually going to ask about how do you distinguish between a front end, back end, and a full stack? Are we talking about everybody's a full stack developer, or you have some UX folks, some back end folks, some database folks? I mean, so there's that one. So there's this. So and also multi-specialist. How is a multi-specialist different than a generalist? That's kind of another thing. Well, what do you tell me more about that?
What the fuck are we talking about? Sebastian.
No, but it's a good point. Of course, not every person has the same skill set. It's obviously every person is an individual. Everyone does this thing better than that thing. But I think it's important to think about how concepts are written. The idea is not I've write a concept and then someone, I don't know who, is assigned this random thing, but I've write a concept with a person in mind, and I would be stupid if I write a concept for someone I know. It's a very UX heavy concept. There's much things going on in the UI, and I give it to someone, or I talk to someone about it who says, yeah, I can do stuff in the front end, but it's not really my biggest cup of tea. So that is exactly the flexibility I was referring to. You can and you have to adapt to the workload you have. You have to adapt to the people you're working with. You have to know them well, and at the end of the day, you have to collaborate, and that in the nicest possible way, which is, I think, TOSD to this day.
And TTEO specifically.
Exactly. I was hoping you would go there.
It's incredible to me how many organizations fail because they just don't talk to each other. It's ridiculous.
By the way, there's a great pop song. It goes like this: "All you can do is to sit and wait." Do you know this song, Ryan? I think
I don't.
You don't? Okay. I think what most software developers do most of the time is sit and wait. And not because they are incompetent, inflexible, or whatever. It's that there's so much waiting time imposed upon people in software development because you are waiting for a problem to be solved by someone, for a meeting to happen, for
I gotta wait for the stand-up.
And in TOS, I think the key, and we are seeing how difficult it is at Pflaeging as well, right? It's not a simple thing, but people, when they face a problem, they must talk to somebody immediately. That's the rule of the game, really. It's the biggest rule in TOS, in time orientation, because if you have a problem that you think you cannot solve yourself, talk to someone. Ask a friend, as they say in Denmark, among in the hospitals and so among doctors. Ask a friend. Let's talk to each other, because only then can you solve the problem and start working again immediately. Otherwise, how long will you wait before you have the problem solved? Until the meeting is happening, until someone comes along and pressures you to solve it. So time orientation, one of the secrets to acceleration is to talk about problems when they happen immediately, no waiting.
Yeah, and intrinsic motivation, that's key. You can't do, and that's maybe if you want to, the downside. I think TOSD won't work well if you have, you are stuck with people that don't want to be there. that don't have any interest in progressing your product, in leveraging everything for your company. You won't turn these people into creative masterminds and output machines just by applying TOSD. In the end, it's still a people game. You have to look very sharply and very clearly at the people you're working with, and in the end have to make decisions where you want to go with them.
Also, whom to hire. I think that's something that started at Pratke.
Hiring.
This question of asking developers when you hire them, do you really want to be a developer? And if that's not clear, then
what is a developer? Questions we were thinking at length about.
What does it mean to be a developer at Pratke? And that's in having the standards for your own organization with your own boundaries. What does it mean to you? Having that discussion first before you hire somebody, as opposed to having it, in their mandated annual performance review kind of thing. So we are coming up a little bit on time. We got about 15 minutes or so. I'm wondering what. Okay, you're holding the white paper, I think, Niels. Did you want to say something about the white paper?
I'm so proud of the poster. It arrived just a few days ago. The concept review has arrived, so everything we're talking about is visible on the poster as well. The OK point, the flow between the list and conceptualization, and the OK point and realization. So, and the principles of TOSD, of which there are a few that we didn't. We mentioned them implicitly, and this poster can also be acquired, by anyone. The white paper the research paper is available for free download, and the paper can also be bought in print. I do not have it here right now, I think, to show it, but the poster is also very nice. Yeah, thank you for showing the link. Just to mention, that these things are not just things we talk about. We conceptualize them and turn them into an open source approach, open source social technology. So for anyone to use, people just have to mention the source, which are Sebastian and myself, and keep it open source. If they innovate on top of it, improve it. Yes. So there are those boundaries, and they are outlined on the TOSD conceptual homepage. Yeah.
Just to mention
the poster. Yeah.
Beautiful work. So I want to also, before we go to me, what was, Sebastian, for you? What was the biggest aha? What was the biggest flip for you in coming to TOSD? If you think about it, what was the aha?
I had a very, very strong key moment for me when I thought, okay, this is working, and that was when multiple senior developers approached me, not as a collective, but individually, on week 3, 4. I think I've written it in the paper. And it took me by the side and said, "Oh, Sebastian, I think this is it. This is working. Things are starting to flow. We are getting progress. We're seeing results, and it's fun. I'm having the time of my life. This is really, 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 really great, and that is so fulfilling for me, and that I was really happy at that point, and that gave me a lot of strength. To be honest, there were problems, and we're still struggling with some stuff, and I have to readjust here and there and talk to people and so on. But that interaction gave me the confidence that we are definitely on the right track and that things will work out. And I'm grateful for that. Very so.
Wow. That it can be fun. That gets lost in many ways. It's fun, and I think because a lot of folks talk about, the joy. This should be fun. This death march that we used to have in the 70s and 80s. That waterfall was horrible. And then Scrum becomes death march because the death march is the stand up and the retro and the so to loosen stuff and have. It's like this whole musical feeling, right? We're being together, we're being an ensemble, which is so cool. So that fun, that joy. The other thing I wanted to say is fun. It's like this sense of personal efficacy, right? I'm getting stuff done, and I see it every day. I'm talking to you. We shake hands. We come together. We're not waiting for you to approve my, We're shaking hands. We're getting stuff done. Oh, we're going to do something. Oh, well, it's like exciting. Feels like that. Oh, there's a lot of energy and life to it. Where the other more rigid and imposed structures, there's not that kind of life to it. So that's what I heard from you. That's very hopeful. It's very hopeful.
Yeah, which is one of the basics of time orientation, to bring back to software development this experience that any farmer has working the field, that at the end of the day, when you go to bed, you can say the work's deed is done. I finished something, and this daily satisfaction of the daily rhythm of feeling accomplishment daily, or in TOSD almost daily, because some items take 3 or 2 days to realize, but this is something that Scrum didn't solve for, or Agile techniques didn't solve at all for software development. In Waterfall, it took months for any phase or years or never, to finalize something. And Scrum took that to a level of 14 days or maybe 3 weeks or never, because then you play games around never getting anything done. And in time orientation, the foundation of the whole software development process is get things done in a day. Make sure that everybody can have the feeling of the day's deed is done every day or almost every day of work. And this is maybe the biggest mind-blowing shift, which is also important in all kinds of time-oriented work systems, the Weichselbaum systems, Toyota production systems, feeling of giving back people the feeling of accomplishment, daily accomplishment, which is an inner human need. Ernst Weichselbaum wrote about that beautifully, and we put those quotes in the paper as well. It's all there. Yeah, Sebastian, you want to add something?
No, I think you summed that up beautifully as usual.
My God. All right, guys. I have to think. I mean, my gosh, I feel like we've only gotten like this deep in, and there's so many questions, so much there. Certainly, read the white paper. For those of you who are out there, it is probably one of the deepest white papers and most dense white papers that we have in the BetaCodex network. Is foundational. I mean, it ties in all that stuff. I think there's several more episodes here. I don't know when we're going to have them.
Yes, we should do another episode in a few weeks or maybe months, the latest. So this is not done. This is just the initial experience and to other companies, other countries. Let me also add that the first TOSD conference will happen in February, on 26th February at Pratke headquarters in Bochum, Germany, in German language. So people can sign up to that already, or they can, of course, have an impulse session with Sebastian or myself or others on the TOSD team. And we are preparing for the first. So the Bochum conference will happen in February, and it seems that in March there will be another TOSD conference in Buenos Aires, Argentina.
Ernesto, maybe, possible.
Yes, Ernesto from DevOps is behind that. So interesting stuff to come. A lot of things. People can start adopting. If somebody listened to this or watched this and found it compelling, you can get going now.
Yeah,
in your way, accept your own beliefs, maybe. And Sebastian and I will be happy to indicate you how to
reach out.
Yeah.
So world of possibility, folks.
TTEO.
TTEO. Talk to each other, folks. That actually, it's one of my buddies in the Agile domain. He talks. I'm blurry. God, for a second, I don't know why. That's not a new thing. It's just been forgotten. You know, talk to each other. A guy named Jim Grinning years and years ago talked about that. Talk to each other. Be human beings together. You're not machines. Manage the work, not the people. Like this is it's simple, but it's
and as so often in the context of BetaCodex topics, the secret, of course, is not, there's no hidden secret in TOSD that would be totally unthinkable or hard to think about. But the secret is more in eliminating what doesn't work.
Yeah.
The waterfall stuff, the agile stuff that doesn't work, and so on, the roles that do not work, the rituals that do not work, the processes that do not work, the rules that do not work, etc., etc. And it's really about back to basics. You know, it's very fundamental. But still, if you have several software developers, it's not trivial to see how time can be used as the ultimate structure to discipline group of software developers that you probably have, you know, and there may be 3 software developers or hundreds or thousands. You need something to discipline them, you know, as a group, to create discipline within the work process. Time is that structure. You don't need
you don't need another human being to discipline you.
Exactly.
Inflict discipline upon you.
Or let's say the sharpest. What does Indiana Jones use to hit his enemies? Whip.
Oh,
the sharpest whip
the
in
bullwhip.
software development is time, and not a boss. You know.
Yeah, boy, all this. I mean, you really hit the nail on the head against another insight. You know, that you brought out there is that this is all these little bits of structures and process, all these bureaucratic things that have built upon the building software over the years. It is all gone in this direction that what we aspire to do, I would say, here in the beta movement, is to release folks from that ridiculousness of bureaucratic power over bullshit. You know, so that's.
And lead us not into waterfall, but deliver us from the burden of springs.
Don't go chase the waterfalls. All right. So okay, everybody, don't go chasing waterfalls. Be well. Listen to the music. You had another song you wanted to sing here to sing us out, Niels.
I wanted to, for the older folks who might be listening, I had the plan, I had prepared carefully to sing part of a tune from the 1990s, I think, by a band called Salt and Pepper, which it was a huge hit. Let's Talk About Sex, and it works so well with Let's Talk About.
And of course, he freezes up. Let's talk about TOS, baby. Let's talk about TOS, baby. Okay. All right, folks. Let's talk about TOS. You froze. You said it was Let's Talk About. It was like that. So, all right, everybody. Sebastian, thank you so much. I dearly hope this is.
It was
not
a
the last
blast.
time you show
Thanks
up
for
in
having
here.
me.
Let's have some more of these jam sessions. Niels, always a pleasure. And to you out there who might be watching, hopefully you are, whenever it is in time for you, thank you so much for the precious gift of that time and attention. Peace out, be well, and end stream.